In the summer of 1988, inside Iran's Evin and Gohardasht prisons, three-man commissions were deciding the fate of political prisoners in proceedings that lasted only minutes. No charges, no defense. One question determined everything. Are you still loyal to your beliefs? If the answer was yes, the prisoner was taken directly to the gallows. Between 2,800 and 5,000 people faced that question. Most did not walk out. This is what those rooms looked like and what happened next. 6 prisoners at a time. Cranes and forklift trucks, a new wave every 30 minutes, across at least 32 cities. The bodies vanished into unmarked graves that families still cannot find. On July 8, 1988, Ayatollah Khomeini issued a single handwritten fatwa. It ordered the execution of every imprisoned member or supporter of the People's Mojahedin Organization of Iran, who remained, in his words, steadfast in their political beliefs. The document was short. The consequences were not. Human Rights Watch later estimated that between 2,800 and 5,000 political prisoners were killed in the months that followed. Amnesty International, reviewing the same period in 1988, placed the figure at approximately 4,500 to 5,000, noting that most were killed after summary proceedings lasting only minutes and failing every standard of a fair trial. Ayatollah Hossein Ali Montazeri, then Khomeini's designated successor, documented in his memoirs that 2,800 to 3,800 prisoners died in just the first weeks. In 2024, a UN Special Rapporteur concluded the killings may constitute crimes against humanity and possibly genocide. The fatwa itself contained fewer than 100 words, yet it set in motion a machinery of death that would operate continuously for months across multiple detention facilities. To understand 1988, the camera has to pull back 9 years. In February 1979, weeks after Khomeini returned from exile in Paris, revolutionary courts began issuing death sentences inside Tehran's prisons, courtyards, and improvised detention sites. Hearings sometimes lasted under 5 minutes. By March and into May of that year, the executions moved outdoors. Construction cranes, ordinary industrial machines designed to lift steel beams, were repurposed as gallows in city squares. Prisoners were hoisted slowly into the air and left suspended for hours, deliberately visible to commuters, schoolchildren, and shopkeepers. The cranes became a signature image of the new regime. Across the first 18 months after the revolution, roughly 30,000 executions were reported across various categories, a figure compiled from multiple human rights bodies and not independently verified by later detailed studies, but consistent in scale across sources. The terror was not hidden. It was advertised. Then came June 20, 1981. After mass anti-regime protests in Tehran, the Islamic Republic responded with sweeping arrests, and the execution apparatus expanded into something resembling industrial production. A 1996 study estimated around 12,000 political prisoners killed between 1981 and 1989. The cranes kept rising in city squares. Revolutionary guards operated them in shifts, maintaining a steady rhythm of death that became part of the urban landscape. But what came in the summer of 1988 would take this machinery and move it behind locked doors. The death commissions convened in July 1988. Each panel held 3 men, a religious judge, a prosecutor, and a representative of the Ministry of Intelligence. They sat in plain rooms inside Evin and Gohardasht. Prisoners were brought in one at a time, blindfolded until the moment they faced the table. The questioning rarely exceeded a few minutes. It focused not on crimes, not on evidence, not on prior sentences many prisoners were already serving, but on belief. Did the prisoners still support the Mojahedin? Did they pray? Would they walk through a minefield for the Islamic Republic? Answers were recorded. Decisions were immediate. Prisoners deemed unrepentant were moved directly down a corridor to a room where ropes hung from steel beams. Eyewitnesses later described up to 6 prisoners hoisted simultaneously on cranes or forklift trucks inside the prison grounds, with a new group cycled through roughly every 30 minutes. The bodies were loaded onto refrigerated trucks at night and driven to locations like Evin Cemetery on Tehran's outskirts, where mass graves were dug and left unmarked. Families received no notification, no body, no burial site. Some learned of the deaths months later when a guard handed over a small bag of personal items. Guards worked in rotating shifts to maintain the pace of executions throughout each day and into the night. The 1979 cranes had been a public warning. The 1988 commissions were the opposite, a sealed system designed to disappear thousands of people without record, without witness, without trace. The cranes never came down. In 2023, Germany's Federal Foreign Office recorded that Iran executed at least 834 people in a single year, the highest annual total in the dataset since the office began compiling it. Amnesty International, working from independent sources, documented at least 853 executions that same year, the largest figure recorded in more than 8 years. The methods have barely changed since Khomeini's era. Hanging remains the dominant tool. Iranian law still permits firing squad, stoning, beheading, and being thrown from a height. But the rope, often from a construction crane in a public square, continues to do most of the work. Summary trials persist. Ideological loyalty tests persist. In 2021 alone, UN Special Rapporteur Javaid Rehman documented at least 275 executions, including at least 2 child offenders and 10 women. The infrastructure built in February 1979, expanded after June 1981, and perfected in July 1988, was never dismantled. It was institutionalized. Revolutionary courts evolved into permanent state organs. The Death Commission model, with its brief hearings and predetermined outcomes, became a template applied not only to political prisoners, but to drug defendants, ethnic minorities, and protesters from the 2009 Green Movement through the 2022 demonstrations that followed the death of Mahsa Amini. The cranes themselves, many still bearing manufacturer labels from the 1970s, remain stationed in the same locations where they first appeared decades ago. 47 years after the revolution, the same equipment lifts the same kind of bodies into the same kind of morning air. For roughly 300,000 Iranians living in exile across Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, these are not statistics in a UN report. They are uncles who never came home from Evin in August 1988. Sisters arrested at a Tehran university in 1981, whose graves have never been located. Fathers whose names appear on no official list because no official list was ever kept. Evin Cemetery, where many of the 1988 victims are believed to lie, has been repeatedly bulldozed by Iranian authorities over the past 2 decades, paved over, planted with trees, the ground deliberately altered to prevent forensic identification. The killers of 1988 were never tried. Several were promoted. One served as Iran's Minister of Justice. Another later ran for president. The question that opened this story still has no answer. A single fatwa, signed by one man in the summer of 1988, set in motion a machinery that has outlived him by more than 3 decades, and the families are still counting. The 1988 massacre was not chaos. It was not the excess of a revolution losing control. It was a system, a fatwa, a commission, a corridor, a rope, a truck, a pit, widespread, systematic, carried out without lawful process across at least 32 cities. The cranes that rose in Tehran's squares in 1979 are still rising in 2026. The commissions that met in 1988 left a template that Iranian courts still follow. One question opened this story. How did a single religious leader authorize this? The harder question is why the machinery he built is still running.